Welcome back. You're watching South Africa Tonight. Now, it's a few months left before South Africans can move to a two-part retirement system. The system will allow people to withdraw a portion of their retirement funds before they retire. Meanwhile, Government Employees Pension Fund last month raised concerns about a possible data breach. To speak about this and more, the fund's chairperson, Dondo Mogajane, joins me now in studio. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. I think because it's Freedom Day, let's maybe just get your perspective on your memories of 1994 and where you voted.
Yes, I mean 1994, I lived in Durban at the time, and I had to go home in Brits in Letlabile to go and vote. It was an exciting, I was queuing from early morning and I cast my vote. Of course, at the time, I definitely voted for the ANC.
And now? Are you ready to vote on the
vote? A vote is always your secret.
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
I'm just mentioning what happened then.
Okay, great.
So it's still my secret.
Good, it can be your secret, that's fine. Let's speak about the two-part system and it coming into effect. It was supposed to be March and now it's moving to September.
Yes, it is moving to September. Of course, we're waiting for two pieces of legislation to be finalized, and this in the parliamentary system. The GP law must be, amended, and of course, the GPA, Government Pension Administration processes must also be aligned, including, of course, its SARS. Firstly, yes, people are going to have to withdraw money, must pay tax, so SARS must align, and the law must take into effect. Yeah. So currently, we're looking at estimates of 30,000 rand withdrawal. That's and we've got estimates. We worked out various scenarios. 25%, if 25% of the total membership take up the money, or even 100%. So the impact at 30,000 is going to be anything between 9 billion and 38 billion rand. So the fund is ready to actually, take care of that, and we've got enough buffers to ensure that if that happens in the way it's going to happen, that at a minimum of 30,000 we are able to carry all the members that will want to exercise their option of taking this.
What are some of the risks, though, of this two-part system? And do you think that it's the right decision to have a two-part system?
Look, I've got my own views. My personal, and I don't obviously, there's been a process where Labour, right at the beginning, was involved to ensure that this benefit comes through. But personally, I've got my own views. I wouldn't tamper with my pension. I wouldn't take 30,000 or any amount, because that on its own may have an impact and effect in future in terms of the size of what I can get out. But look, that's arguments for another day. The reality here is that it's going to impact on the size of the portfolio of call it this way, the 2.3 trillion that is assets under management currently. So it will affect, of course, because, as I said, anything between 9 and 38 billion will be affected. It means, of course, we must look at some of the investments that we make and reduce the size of some of the investments to cater for this. So, but our technical colleagues are working on the details of this. It will definitely have an impact.
I know you say that, your own personal views is a discussion for another day, because we shouldn't be tampering with our retirement. But the argument around the two-part system is that people are struggling now. They need cash flow now, and they don't want to wait until they retire, if they'll even reach their retirements. But the concern also is the amount in which you can withdraw, which, if you look at things, it's not much of a difference.
30,000 rand, okay, you'll exercise that. I can tell you now, many of our members will not use effectively the 30,000 rand, and they will use, someone was saying to me that I'll spend it over a weekend or less than a weekend, and that's the challenge. So, but our advice, of course, to members is that they must think this thing through carefully and make sure they make the good choice and the right choice in exercising this right. And of course, we as I say, the systems will be ready to ensure that those who want to access this 30,000 can access it.
So people watching are obviously wanting to understand the technicalities around that. Are you able, with the one pot to withdraw it at one go? So you're able to take the full 30,000 Rand out in September, or is it in installments or chunks?
Look, it will, as I'm saying, the final arrangements have been made now in terms of, and of course we'll issue direct, once this process is finalized, we'll issue directives in terms of how members can access this. But I can imagine, if you want to take everything at one, you will take everything at one. But as I say, there will be tax implications. It's not going to be just...
So you're going to be taxed on 30,000 Rand?
Look, as I'm saying, let's wait for those regulations, and I can tell you it will be taxed, definitely.
And when are those regulations coming out?
Look, as I say, before implementation of 1st September, they will obviously be finalized.
Are you able to tell us about people who are currently married or were married and now divorced, and they're wondering how that whole two-part system is going to work? If
I don't want to delve into that again, and I know conversations are ongoing and finalization of processes. Let's not go into the technical details of how it will work. The key here is that you'll be able to access it. Laws are being finalized and regulations are being finalized, and the take home on this matter is that it will impact on the size of the fund, one, and secondly, it will impact on the size of the value and the benefit value for members in the long future.
So there's obviously been robust conversations around this, and it's clear that people were more for this two-part system than people were against it. Now, you've clearly indicated that there are going to be implications for that. Maybe those watching and really thinking about delving into 1/3 of their first pot and then only getting the second pot when they do retire, about whether or not they actually should, and whether or not it is feasible for them to do so.
My advice to, and you need what we've been saying to members as we do our road shows, because we do that all the time, our team goes out and engages with members, is that get proper, real advice, retirement advice in terms of what it will mean for you. You look at the actual amounts that the projections, the actual benefit that you'll get, and make the decision. So for some individuals it will be, why not? If I take it, I'm still okay, because there's many other benefits out there, and they have prepared thoroughly for their pension, and some will not, and those are my worry. My worry is those who are not fully prepared or are not fully secured for their pension, and those are the ones who may suffer in the long term.
What about the data breach? We have had certain government employees come to us and say that they have not been able to access their profiles. Has this been sorted out, and how did this happen in the first place?
Look, it's ongoing. It's ongoing with, remember, this is a government pension administration agency that's responsible, GEPF. There's always confusion between GEPF and GEPF. We have an agreement with GEPF to administer benefits on our behalf, just like we have the PIC on one hand to invest on our behalf. So we've got two agreements with these two institutions. Now, we knew about this, and we engaged, and I get reports every Friday evening as to what's happening insofar as this is concerned. It was worrying initially when clearly we were not aware what's happening, but the latest is that member information is secured. Member information was not breached to a point where it's freely available out there. At least those certainties we got from GEPF, and I know they're working flat out. We indicated also that we stand ready as GEPF in terms of them needing resources to actually address this. And I know there's been conversations now with some service providers who are on board, who are really fixing this. But currently we are informed that the situation is under control, and that data is preserved, and that they are fixing even for the future, for future deterrence.
So are people able to access their profiles as yet, or are you still working on that?
We're still working on that. Some are those who are obviously logged on into the system, but if you have to go on your app now, you will not be able to as yet. But you are able to go into an office and actually access your data information and be able to engage with the offices there.
Okay. Before we move on to a previous hat that you wore as DG of National Treasury, I just want to ask you, you mentioned that there are buffers in place and the fund will be able to handle once the two-part system is implemented in September. I want to speak about the stability of the fund once this two-part system is implemented. I think you mentioned 9 billion rand or so.
Between 9 and 38
yeah.
billion.
So can the fund handle that, and is it a concern? Because you don't know what's going to happen in September. You don't know if everybody's now going to decide, okay, I'm going to take my full 1/3 out, my 30,000 or whatever the figure might be. How do you see that happening?
I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned about whether the fund will be able to carry this. I mean, the latest information, when I say latest, I mean Thursday. I mean, we had a board-to-board meeting with the PIC, for instance, and this was, on the agenda, and the colleagues were briefing us in terms of where this is, and the information we have is that the fund will be able to carry the limit. I mean, the maximum of 38 billion, including, and we've got various scenarios, if members will be able to even access up to 200,000 rands. So we have, and we are comfortable. But my worry is that, on one hand, remember, we've got a fund that's performing and that's growing, and we've got the PIC, which we are calling for them to invest more in the economy, because this is if you invest in the economy is growing, and member value can be seen through other investments, there will not be a need for members wanting to access, because if things like their housing, things like the education of their children, and many other things, and the economy is functioning and we're able to see growth, there won't be a need for other people to want to seek other opportunities to get more money. So here, I think it's a matter of what do we choose? The options that we have, if it was my money and I was in direct control, I would invest more in productive sectors of the economy to grow the economy, in order for me not to rely on other forms of income, including accessing early pension.
But shouldn't that be the conversation and the educational conversation, to say, instead of taking 30,000 rand out, which probably won't take you very far, depending on what your fund looks like, or your retirement fund looks like, invest it, because there is greater return on that.
Look, that's what it is, and I can imagine that it has always been that. That education is there, we talk about it all the time, but where the board of the GEPF sits currently, we are saying, let's invest in this economy, let's grow the size of the economy through the might and the power that we have, and ensuring that the PIC invest in the right assets that will actually grow the fund, one, and also grow the South African economy. That's our emphasis and our focus.
Do you think that the interest in this two-part system also speaks to the struggles that people are going through, and how people are just not making ends meet?
It does. It does, and I don't want to even suggest that people are not suffering and people are not, it does. It tells you, if someone wants to access that 30,000 at all costs, it will tell you that they are going to patch other areas of need. So, but again, it talks to the South African challenges. Yeah. Inequality, poverty, unemployment. We're sitting at 30+ unemployment rate. We should be worried about that. This is only going to address those members of the fund. But what about the rest of South Africans? So that's why I'm saying I would rather invest this money, ensuring that the lot benefit, and that we are able to grow the fund and able to actually address the social infrastructure needs that are there, infrastructure investments that are needed to actually boost this economy. I
want to just ask you, in terms of your views on the state of our economy. Very little growth, as you mentioned.
1.6% is nothing to write home about. I mean, these are the projections that the Treasury put out in February in terms of where we see growth this year. The world average is around 3%, 3.1%. We should actually at least be around there as a start. But it tells you of the constraints of our economy. I mean, we've been talking about the structural constraints for the longest of time. We have to begin to do something about it. And I'm happy on the energy front, this has been addressed. On the logistics front, this has been addressed. And the transmission company, of course, will be set up, and all those transmission lines will be connected. And energy, because energy on its own has got a potential with the estimates and the modeling that the Treasury did some years ago. By just addressing the energy constraints, this economy can grow by anything between 1 and 2% immediately on day one if we address our energy constraints. And of course, we know what other areas. So I'm not happy with the performance of the economy. It is worrying, and we've got the potential to can do well as a country. But however, the will must be there. The private sector must play its part, and that's why we will push. Heidi, we will push the private sector with the might of the GPF. Because remember, this 2.7 trillion is in the economy. We are in various sectors. We are in the financial sector. We are in all the sectors. So we need to ensure that these companies invest in the right areas. We launched our transformation policy last year, if you remember, in November. It talks about how to unlock. It talks about forcing investee companies to do the right thing, take into account some of the challenges that we have. We talked about empowerment of broad-based black economic empowerment. We talk about empowering new asset managers who the PIC is supposed to support. We talked about social infrastructure investments that must be there. So without doing that, this economy won't do anything. And we must force these companies, by the way. We must force the companies that the GPF is invested in to address these things. We must sit in those boards. We must, wherever we have a seat or we are entitled to a board seat in terms of our own shareholding and representation, we must insist. And the last thing that we have to talk about, and I'm happy, and at the right time we'll talk more about it. With the PIC, we are at one here, and I'm talking as early as Thursday, that shareholder activism should be written on our foreheads as the PIC and GPF to say, how do we ensure that we push boundaries of these companies, of these sectors to actually perform better? And we will do our part. Government will do its part. The private sector must also do its part.
Just very lastly and very quickly, if you will, I'm curious to know what you thought about government tapping into its sovereign reserves as the former DG.
No, look, it had to be because we are addressing, and I'm happy. I would have done it if I was still there. I would have supported the idea. What did they do with the money? They're not going to spend it on fruitless consumption types of expenditure. They're going to service or pay debt. So it's a good thing that they did. And I commended them at the time of the budget. And I phoned the DG and the Minister of Finance. I said, well done. Because I think there was no other way to do it other than the way they did it. The market responded positively to that. And it shows they know what they're doing. It shows they're in control, and it shows there's a plan here to actually move this economy forward. So, and yeah, I congratulate my former colleagues. They did the right thing.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your insights, and thanks for coming in to studio. We do appreciate it. That was the chairperson of the Government Employees Pension Fund, Dondo Mogajane. We'll be back after this.